3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, where we explore strategies for training, competing, and well-being shared through experiences from some of the sharpest minds in the fitness space. Now, welcome your host, Micah Shoemaker.
I don't know. I was like out in the field and I had to like do this on like I think some AirPods actually. And he was like, the mic's host or the host mic is unlistenable. And I was like, dude, out of the 90 episodes I've done, my freaking audio is perfect. It sounds like a crisp baby's ass. And the one time I give you some, decent, I wouldn't even say, I'm not going to say bad, just decent audio. You flip your shit and write a bad review. So for all of you listening out there, this is my way of saying, if you have 3 seconds, go to iTunes, write a review, because it helps. You can just talk about how crisp my mic is. That's all I want you to say. And whatever else you want to say. But anyways, so yeah, people are douchebags. Fuck them. I don't care. But that was a funny story because Rob sent that to me and he was like, hey, this guy's hating on your mic. I was like, dude, like, you know what? I'm just trying to bring something good to the people. And if y'all don't freaking like it, then you know what? F you. So anyways, how you doing this morning?
Good, man. Good. We are actually up in Georgia for the weekend. So
Georgia, oh Georgia.
Hanging out in the mountains.
What's in Georgia? Just like vacay?
Yeah, a little vacation.
That's
my wife planned it for my birthday this week, so.
Happy freaking birthday, dude. You're on the podcast on your birthday. Look, good dude award. Good dude award. I don't even know if I can do. Do I have clapping? I have clapping. There we go. Clap it up for this guy. Happy birthday. All right. That's cool. I've never used those before. Anyways, okay, so you're in the mountains. This is going to sound very uneducated, what I'm about to say. But I've been to Georgia lots of time. I live in Alabama, right? But I didn't really know people go there for the mountains. I mean, honestly, I've been to Tennessee for the mountains, but I've never been to Georgia. Like, is there like legit mountains like in Georgia? Like you can go like camp out and stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it stretches through Tennessee. It's just we're in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it's like an hour out from Tennessee. So I've actually, in Tennessee, we've hiked like a portion of Blue Ridge, like when I've been out there for like the classic and stuff.
Oh, shit.
So something different than the beach. I like being out here since I've lived in Naples my whole life.
Oh, so see, dude, I didn't even know you lived in Naples your whole life. See, I just learned that. So you were born there.
Yeah, so, yep, I was born and raised there, and that's kind of how, like, Matt and I met each other, because he was born in Miami, but he was pretty much, like, raised in Naples his entire life. So, like, we had a ton of mutual friends, but we never really knew each other because he was 4 years older than me in high school. But, like, we had so many of the same friends and stuff. It's weird.
So for people that don't know who Matt is, he just said you're talking about Matt Torres, right? Just so people can put two and two together.
Torres.
Coach of some of the fittest, freakiest teenagers. Well, now grown adults. He's not just coach of teenagers now on earth. It's pretty insane. Okay, so did y'all like play rec sports together or anything like that? Or like,
no,
how did you meet other than just going to the same high school?
So that's a crazy story, actually. So when I finished
crazy story.
My bachelor's degree from FGCU down here, my family, I was living with my family at the time, and we moved out to the North Naples area in Indigo Lakes, which if you're familiar with the Naples area, you know where that is. But Matt and the other guy that he owned North Naples CrossFit with, they were doing car valet at the restaurant that my stepdad was a server. And my stepdad came home one night and he was like, yo, I met these guys. They just opened an affiliate. And he was like, you should go talk to them and like see like if they need a coach or like maybe you can work out there since we moved out here. Because I was just working out of the garage at that time, not going to the affiliate I used to go to. And he was like, you should go talk to them. Like they just got into like running a CrossFit gym. And I had been like in and out of coaching affiliate classes and in CrossFit like maybe 5 years at that point. So I just randomly popped over there to his gym and Matt was there and I got Olivia and I a membership and we worked out there for a few months. And then I was like, hey, my stepdad told me to come in. And then after a few months, like the open came around and I helped them like judge a bunch of their members like through the open. And they were like, yo, do you want to coach?
That's awesome.
And the rest is history. So through my stepdad, while Torres and Dario were running cars in the valet at Seasons 52 to pay for the affiliate.
Yo, and look, man, that's why I have such a great affinity and respect for a lot of these affiliate owners, right? Because a lot of people don't know this, is that these affiliate owners, it's kind of hard to make a living sometimes. And a lot of them are doing several different jobs. Gym owners in general are doing several different jobs to make ends meet, to make a living. Not like live bougie, just make a living. Just like pay the bills, do the shits. You know what I'm saying? And I have such a respect for that. And it's really hustle at its best. And I think if you know you and you know Matt and you know these people and you're just like, man, these people hustle their faces off. And I don't know, have a great respect for that. But so, all right, help me out with something because, and this is my limited time or understanding of the timeline. I'm sure you can fill it in. So you obviously go to this affiliate. Were you doing CrossFit prior to that affiliate? I mean, obviously, if someone was like, hey, you should go drop into this thing, I'm sure you were doing CrossFit to some extent.
Yeah, so
right?
I actually started CrossFit when I was 19. I had just moved back to Florida. I actually was going to school originally at Notre Dame's brother school, and I was trying to transfer into Notre Dame, like Rudy style. And after a year of being up there, I was like, yo.
Yes.
I was like, yo, I haven't seen the sun in like 6 months. And I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm coming home. So I came back down.
I'm homesick.
Yeah, I came back down to Naples, and it was actually that summer when I was transferring into FGCU when one of my friends brought me into CrossFit Real Fitness. Mm-hmm. And I kind of learned about it there. And then I didn't go to the affiliate though right away. So I actually, after going there one time with her and like kind of finding out what it was, my cousins and I, and sometimes my uncles, I have a huge family, so we would all get together in my garage and we would like do CrossFit workouts and I would just pull them off .com. I'm a 19-year-old kid. I have no idea what I'm doing. And we're just like going hard. My family and I like pitch in on like a garage thing on Rogue to like put together a little gym in our garage, and we're just like doing random stuff in my yard. And, like it was wild, dude. Like crazy stuff. I don't know how I never got hurt, but so I did that for a while, and then I actually finally ended up going to that affiliate. My parents actually got me membership there for like as a Christmas gift. They got me 3 months, and they were like, if you like it after 3 months, then you can like find a way to pay for it and keep going for it. So I actually, in those 3 months, the owner of that gym at the time, I had just turned 20, and he was like, hey, do you want to coach here? And I was like, dude, I've never coached anything in my life. And he was like, well, we'll intern you on, you'll shadow. They helped send me to get my level 1. Yeah, the only job I had done prior to doing this was like hosting at my parents' restaurant that they owned. Like that's the only other thing I've ever done besides coaching CrossFit, because I hosted a little bit there
Totally qualified.
in high school and now here. So that kind of like inspired my whole route of fitness. I worked out a lot in high school. I went to a small private school, so I was like forced to play every single sport. And I was out of shape when I started that, so I got into like working out early. But CrossFit around 19, come through this affiliate, I ended up deciding to get my bachelor's degree in exercise science and physiology from FGCU. That's when I stepped away from the affiliate because I had to do some massive internships. I interned at Community School of Naples down here in their strength and conditioning. And then I actually was basically like the assistant strength coach at FGCU for all of their athletics under Eric Krause. And I actually almost stayed there. If I didn't meet Matt and Daria, I was actually going to do a grad assistant program and actually try to get a job there as the assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Wow.
And in that same time that I was offered that is when I met Matt and Daria, and I chose to go the CrossFit route instead.
It sucks you in, man. It's a freaking cult. It just is. It's a great cult, but it's cold. You know, it's interesting because, you know, hearing your story, it mirrors in a lot of ways so many stories of not just how people get into coaching CrossFit, but they get into doing CrossFit. And it's this story of, I walk into my local affiliate, I just love it. I love the people, I love the coaching, I love the community. And someone says, whether they work there or not, hey man, you should do this. Hey man, you should coach here. Yeah, right? And it's just like, why not? And you end up, you know, fast forward, and we'll get to this, but and maybe you did, but in that moment, are you ever thinking, hey man, one day I'm going to be coaching like elite level CrossFitters at like the highest level of our sport that have real potential to like stand on the podium and like freaking win? Like, did you ever think about that? Probably not. You're 20 years old.
Bro, no way. Like at that stage of my life, I was so obsessed with like competing myself, which wasn't a bad thing. And like in our area, it was myself and one of my other friends who I'm still really good friends with. We were like two of the youngest guys like doing CrossFit in our area. And the guy that I used to coach with at my first affiliate at Real Fitness, he basically came up to me one day after like a couple years of CrossFitting, and he was like, dude, if you don't get strong, like you might as well just give this up. He's like, you're like a twig. And I'm coming off like soccer from high school and a little bit at the small school I went to in college. And he was like, you got to start eating and you got to start lifting. And so him and I actually competed in weightlifting meets and did like Olympic weightlifting for about a year and a half ourselves. We used to follow a program from Spencer Arnold. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. He used to be the weightlifting coach for the Outlaw Way. Yeah. So he used to write our programming for that. And I learned a lot about weightlifting in that time of my life. So I'm thankful for that now. But that's kind of what led me back into CrossFit is once I felt like I got my lifts up, then I started conditioning again, which is what happened when I went to North Naples CrossFit. And I remember the first class I took there, it was like, I went in there and Matt was having the class was like 3 high hang cleans, like every 2 minutes for 4 sets. And then we had like a Metcon after, and Matt was coaching it. And like, he had no idea who I was. And we're starting to go, and like, they were a pretty new affiliate. And I think I built up to like 275 for 3 or something. And I was like heavy and weightlifting then. And then we went over to the Metcon. I got like dead last in the Metcon. Like I was just
Susie
dying.
Q
He's
beat
like, dude, like I swear there had to be like a 50-year-old mom in the class, and she smoked me in the workout for sure. And that's when I was like, wow, I really got to get back into shape. So I started working out there and kind of went that route. And then after getting back into CrossFit for a while, followed a couple programs with a couple of my buddies online. And then when Matt was starting to get into individual programming, he was like taking courses through Training Think Tank and like working his way towards becoming a competitive coach. He actually approached me one day and he was like, hey man, pretty much like, will you be my guinea pig? And I was like, I mean,
Sure.
I want to try to make regionals was like my goal. I know I'm not like an amazing athlete, so I was like, making it to the games probably going to be pretty hard. But I would like to try to make it to regionals, or like at least be able to beat all my friends in the area so I could talk crap to them. And he was like, yeah, dude, I want to do this. So myself and Matt's sister actually were like his first two guinea pig athletes. And then he took a couple people on. He used us to like just kind of figure out what to do. And dude, he was so good at it. Like the things he had me doing, sometimes I think back on them like, how in God's name did I ever do that stuff? And honestly, like I give a lot of that credit to him. And here's one really cool thing about Matt, and this is something that he's always mentored me up on, is when he did that, he knew he had to like learn and earn his way up. And he never charged me a penny for that programming. And I'm pretty grateful for that, because not only did I like get to fill my competitive itch for myself, but I learned so much about programming in that time period of being under him. So, man, I owe him a lot when it comes to being in the CrossFit space, not just as an athlete, but then after that, he was like, he knew as I was kind of coming towards the end of wanting to be competitive, he was like, dude, you should transition this into coaching. He's like, you'd make an amazing competitive coach. And he kind of mentored me, and he helped me get into Brute. So I owe a lot of my like career success to Matt, for sure.
You know, I love what you just said about the process of, you know, becoming a coach. You know, I think about the similar journey. It's not exact, but it's a similar journey I took in becoming a coach. And all these people that I talk to about, because I get DMs a lot about, you know, how did you get with Brute? How did you become, like, right? And it's really simpler than you think, but a lot of times people don't like the answer that you give. And the answer is very similar to yours. It's sometimes you got to do shit for free because you're learning. And that's exactly what I did too. I took on a client. I was like, dude, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like I've got some knowledge not to kill you, right? So I've got that, but I'm not exactly sure. And same thing, I had a coach of my own, and you're figuring it out, and you're talking to that person, and you're receiving, key word here, you're receiving feedback. You're inviting feedback. You're trying to understand what you can do better, how the things that you're programming are affecting this person, and you're being ruthless in your efforts to test and retest things, to put your ego in a lot of ways to the test, and being okay when it's wrong, and being okay when you simply did not do a good job. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for anyone that can put themselves out there and just say, hey, look, you know what? I'm learning. I'm going to try to learn. I would love if you would come alongside me and help me learn, be a guinea pig. That's a dangerous spot, because I had someone do that for me. And it's just like, holy shit, like it opened up this window into, you know, everything I am still learning, and we're all still learning about coaching, you know. And I think for anyone out there that's listening to this, that's like, you know, I really want to get into coaching. I really want to learn how to do this stuff. It's like, dude, girl, whatever, like, just start with someone that you have some mutual level of trust with, and like get into it. Just simply start. You don't need to, like, I started coaching on spreadsheets. I didn't start coaching on True Coach. Started on spreadsheets, Google Sheets. I didn't have anything fancy, right? Like, you don't need all this shit. You just need to do it, and that will help you refine your skill. Now, in the meantime, I'm getting certifications. I'm taking every second of free time that I have, listening to podcasts, asking people questions, you know, watching YouTube videos. Like, all the shit's out there almost like for free. You just have to go do it and go listen to it. And the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone is, like, take what serves you and leave the rest, because you're going to develop your own style. Take what serves you and leave the rest. That's the biggest piece of advice I've ever learned in coaching, and then I've employed myself. It's not everything I hear I need to do, right? But you need to have the humility, or enough humility to, when you hear something that's maybe contrary to your beliefs, instead of just going, no, don't believe that, is maybe going, hey, that's interesting. Why do you think that? And actually shut up and listen to what the person says. I mean, you and I had this, we were in Madison, and you said something actually about what Matt did with you. You're like, man, my legs would always blow up. And then you gave me like a scenario of what he would do. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. And then I just literally sat there and asked you questions like, well, what did that look like when he progressed it? Okay, well, what did that look like in season? What did that look like out of season? You know, and like genuinely be curious about why someone thinks or believes this thing works or this progression works. And I don't know. I know that was a bit of a tangent, but I don't know about you, but I really do get, I'm not going to say every week, but I would say every month I get DMs about how to get into coaching. And my answer is always the same. Go find someone and work for free.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. Yeah, that's a hard thing to convince people of. But I think if you get into this job or this career, you have to get into it not originally for the purpose of like making a living, if that makes sense.
It does.
Like when I started it, I had to have a side hustle. Now, thank God, like I was able to coach in an affiliate, which is a blessing because it made me also a better programmer, because it allowed me to see and correct more efficiently from watching a bunch of people who come in who maybe have never played a sport, and you have to figure out how to teach them how to snatch. It's like the hardest thing in the world.
Yep.
So props to every coach out there coaching at an affiliate that has to do that. But when you have that skill set from doing that and you apply it to people who move really well, it allows you to see more stuff in more areas. So I'm thankful that was my side hustle. But if I didn't have that, I would have never had to been able to pursue coaching competitive athletes. And honestly, I was blessed to have a few people that just like randomly came into my life and were like, hey, I want you to be my coach. And I was like, I've never done this, nor do I know if I know what I'm doing. And they were like, well, I trust who you are and that you'll put in the time to do that. And I want to see what we can do. And so my very first two competitive athletes that I coached actually, one was Yaja Trzaskowski. I don't know if you're familiar with that name, but she's out of Canada. And I now coach her significant other, Nikki Moderato, which is a long story. But yeah, Yaja approached me in 2018, asked me to come coach her out at regionals, and then just to help her out at the competition. She had made it to regionals in 2018, the East Regional. And then about 3-4 months after that regional, she asked me to do her programming for her full time. And she was like one of my main guinea pigs. And then I have another female that's in her 60s that I still coach.
Dope.
And she's been like high regional semifinal athlete for a long time. In her age groups, she's placed top 30 probably in all the age groups she's been in for the past like 5 years.
It's impressive.
And we still work together. So her goal is to make it to the games as a 65-year-old, but she's awesome, man. And she that lady grinds. And she kind of came up to me. I knew her from the affiliate, and she asked for some help, and then it kind of just built from there. And again, Matt then started mentoring me on, brought me through Brute, and then I started to get more athletes that way. But it kind of started with those two. And again, I think just meeting people and getting yourself out there and being willing to be like, hey, I think you have a lot of potential if you see it in somebody. And then be like, would you be interested in helping you out and see if I can help you get out? And honestly, if you don't think I'm a good fit after at least 6 months, that's completely fine. But if you trust me enough to let me try, I think that's a big thing to do. And there's probably at least 10 or 12 of the athletes that I coach out of the 28 that I coach that I came in that way. So at least like 50% of the people that I coach, I just like somehow providentially met in my lifetime and just took a shot, and then it ended up working out.
Man, that's such a cool story. And I think that's why, I coached in a in a gym, did the coach normal people thing. And nothing wrong with that, by the way. I think to your point, it's like, I think everybody should for a lot of reasons, because it teaches you how to be freaking patient. It teaches you how to refine the things that you say. I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned coaching, whatever, like in an affiliate type of situation, was how do I articulate things, and how simply can I articulate things? Because these people are not athletes. Like, whether we call them athletes or not does not make them an athlete. Susie Q that walked in that wants to lose 20 pounds and heard CrossFit will do it. Like, it's not an athlete. She simply aspires maybe to be one, or have attributes of one. But the reality is she wants to live a better, healthier life and lose 20 pounds. Like, that's the reality. And you learn how to speak the way someone wants to be spoken to, or the way that they learn. And I think for a coach, it's like, that's one of the biggest things that I could possibly tell you. It's like, refine the shit that you say, refine how you say it to someone. And because it's amazing having that EQ, or emotional intelligence, to be able to communicate is such, like, it is the game in coaching. Because especially, and I'm sure you have experienced this, especially when you start dealing with these higher level athletes, like, they are all up in their head. They put all this pressure on themselves. They have all these expectations. They have the expectations of others, themselves, right? And the last thing they want is from a coach to just, give them something that they're not ready for yet. It's like it's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi thing. It's like, when you're ready, like, the right answers will come. And it's not because the right answers are just magically going to be there. It's just because you're going to be ready to receive it. You're going to have enough available RAM in your headspace that you can take those things and actually act upon them. It's like the right answers are there. It's just, are you ready to receive them? And it's what I've found is it's really an emotional game that you're having to dance with this person on and off because of the expectations. And now with Instagram and all the other shit that's happened in our lives, it's even more prevalent and boom, in your face all the time. And I think learning how to deal with that, not only as an athlete, but then as a coach, to help someone else navigate it, because we all deal with the, this comparison syndrome, right? And seeing other people and not being enough, and imposter syndrome. And it's freaking tough. I mean, I speak from personal experience. It's like even as a even as a competitor, I'm sure you can relate to this. It's like, dude, it's like, I'm not strong enough, or I'm not aerobic enough, or I'm not this enough. And that game only manifests itself deeper and deeper and deeper as you get better. It's like, it doesn't go away. People think it goes away. It's like, nah, that's a lie. It only gets deeper, And so I find it to be very interesting as you start to go high. And this is what I found as I started to coach athletes that were better and better and better. And Matt says this all the time. It's like, dude, as you get better, the stakes only get higher. The pressure only gets deeper and harder and more, right? Like, shit doesn't go away like you think it does.
Yeah, I think it's huge, like you were saying. And this is something I feel like I learned early on with my relationship with Matt, is before I ever really trusted his programming, I had to trust him as a person. And a lot of that is like what we would probably call athlete buy-in. It's like, if you don't have athlete buy-in, even if you're writing someone the absolute best possible programming that you could give them for them to succeed, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
If the athlete doesn't believe 100% in what you guys are doing as a team, then you might as well just call it quits, because it's not going to work. And so that's something like I always really try to focus on, especially in the early stages of coaching an athlete, is just really trying to know the person and investing in that person's life before I get them to see like how the programming works. And my original experience, honestly, was with Yasha when I first started coaching her. Like, before I ever coached her, we became really good friends. And there was like stuff here once in a while where like she would send me a video of her snatch and I would just be like, hey, let me look at it and just see what's going on. Or I would call her and check in on like, hey, what'd you get on this open workout? And just like random stuff, just like being her friend. And honestly, when I was doing that, I had no intention of coaching her. We were just really good friends. And I think that helped her to see like, this guy doesn't even care if he coaches me, he just wants to see me succeed. And that was attractive to her. And then, like I said, I now coach her wife, who saw that relationship and was like, that coaching relationship breeds success. And so that's something I've always tried to stick to, like from the beginning now, is I just really try to get to know who people are. And then I'm very honest with them about who I am. Like all my athletes, pretty much for the most part, especially the ones that I coach in person or that I've worked with in person, like we have more discussions about life. And I'm a big, like, I love talking about theology and faith. So all my athletes have to hear it. They don't get a choice, but it's like amazing life discussions. And that's the stuff that I cherish too. Like it's most impactful to me because I hear everybody's background story. I hear where they came from.
I love it.
And I just get to learn about who they are, and these people I'll know for the rest of my life. So as cool as it is to help people do well in CrossFit competitions or try to qualify for the CrossFit Games or podium at the CrossFit Games, wherever they're at, the best part about it for me is just like having so many deep relationships and knowing people at their most vulnerable points and just really learning their hearts.
Dude, I agree with that, man. I was telling my wife this last night. I said, I feel like you could ask any one of my athletes this question. I think they would all answer to some extent the same. And like, do you view Micah as a coach, or do you view him as more as a coach or more than a coach? And I think all of them would say the same thing, is more than the coach, because it's like I do my damnedest to invest on a deeper level than just snatches and muscle ups. And I mean, even to the point where there was, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if she wants this out there, but there was a client of mine that came down to Birmingham. She lives further than Birmingham, way out of state, like 26 hours away, so far. Anywho, came down to Birmingham and helped out for one of the competitions, or the competition that we ran, right? And anyways, she was like, and like, she didn't say this to make me feel bad. She just said it as like a matter of fact. She was like, yeah, this is the only vacation that I get because of my job. And I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah, I wanted to come here and help, help you run this event. And I was just like, holy shit, dude. And like, I was realizing like really quickly that like the relationship that you have, that athlete-client relationship, is way more than just athlete-client. Like it really is. It's something very special, and I can't really put it into words. But it's something that in the most genuine way warms my heart and like really, really makes me feel like, and this is selfish, of course, really makes me feel like damn, like I feel like I'm making a freaking impact, and that makes me feel good. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I'm trying to make a difference in the world. That someone would take their very little vacation time that they have to come down and help me do this thing, and quite frankly work their ass off. It's not vacation.
Right.
That's a lie. They worked 16 hours a day for 3 days straight. So, anyways, I totally get what you're saying, and I love this segue. You were talking about athlete buy-in. So obviously, one of the biggest topics that shocked the CrossFit world was, and obviously we covered it here on this podcast, but Danielle Brandon leaving Underdogs, and she decided to come to Naples. Obviously, we're going to get deep into this, but on the surface, when you heard this news, what was like your first thought, like coming through your head, or wherever you heard it, whether it was IG or Matt or whomever? What was your original thoughts in terms of like her coming to this camp that you were a part of?
Yeah, so I think taking one step back even further, when Matt first told me about everybody coming down to Naples and if I wanted to be involved, that was a shock right away, because I was like, whoa, this is happening. And I was like, yeah, of course I want to do that. And like, as I got to know each person, and I had pretty good relationships with James and Dallin, because I had coached them out, helped Matt coach them out at the 2019 games when he was coaching his individuals. So we had a pretty good friendship, but I didn't know Emma super well. I didn't know Phil at all when he first came through. And over the course of the 6 months before DB transferred over, like, those people had also become my best friends, right? Like, not just James and Dallin. Like, I got to know them on levels that I knew a lot about their life. And I think, like, every person that comes down, it doesn't matter who it is. For me, I feel, especially because of what I believe, like, there is purpose and like a reason why that person is coming. And though I might not know why, if I don't invest in learning about their story, then I'm going to be wasting a gift. And I don't ever want to look back on my life and be like, man, I should have said something, or I should have spent more time there, or invested more time there. And so when I heard she was coming down, obviously I knew she's like one of the best CrossFitters in the world at this point, but I literally, like, honestly knew nothing about her except for the fact that she was like probably the best handstand walker in the game. And honestly, within like 3 weeks of her being down here, like, she clicked pretty well with the team. And I think, like, Matt and I just being able to coach her and Dallin together leading into the games, it was awesome, man. Like, I learned so much about the two of them, but especially her, and like helping her throughout the games. Like, it was such a cool opportunity. Like, that girl's got layers, and she's a pretty awesome person if you get to the core of it, for sure.
So you obviously talked about buy-in and trust being the most important thing. I think people would be, and hell, I'm even interested, how you go about that. And obviously, I don't think that there's some like 5-step, manipulative plan. I don't mean to project that or to assume that, because that's not what I'm thinking or saying. I just merely mean, like, how are you intentional, I guess is the best way of putting this. How are you intentional around creating that trust with someone and that buy-in with someone, especially when let's be real. When you're at the top of the sport, which she clearly is and has, proved and exhibited, time and time again, this is my perception. You almost think that maybe as that person that, like, okay, when someone is helping you, that they kind of want something from it, right? That there's this, like, well, ulterior motive is maybe the best way to put it. How do you go about that to make sure that what you are doing is intentional, and ultimately that it comes off with the right heart, with the right intentions?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to be able to read people. So you mentioned the word emotional intelligence. So, like, understanding where someone's at, if it's the appropriate time to say something. A lot of times I try to wait until, especially, like, there's one instance I can think with Danielle where I think her and I built some trust leading into the games, where she was like, okay, I not only trust Matt, but I trust Dom and what he's going to help me with at the games. And throughout those weeks leading up, like, that was the moment I was kind of waiting and reading for when I would, like, either ask a question or say something that I could tell from how she was attacking other workouts and just, like, watching her life, that she needed to hear. And those are the things I look for. So I look for, like, vulnerable moments where it's the appropriate time to ask a really hard question. Right. And I remember actually even at the games after the first day, her and I were back in the expo center, and we were cooling down. We were watching Dallin finish out the day on the TV. And I was just asking her some questions. And a couple things I asked her were just like, I want you to tell me the 3 things that you need the most from me this weekend that do not involve CrossFit strategy. And then I also want to know the one thing for you that you will be satisfied with this weekend, even if you don't reach your competitive goals. Just to kind of, like, learn where her head and her heart are at. And then what I did for the rest of that weekend was keep her accountable to those things, right? So what she told me in the answer to that question of who she wanted to be and what she wanted to represent and what she would be satisfied in, even if she didn't meet her performance goals, those were the things I tried to keep her mind and her heart focused on the entire weekend, especially when we had a bad event, right? Because if you can remember those things when you have a bad event, and I think just learning about what people actually care about is the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, like, CrossFit is going to come and go. People are going to have careers. It's going to fade. The whole thing's going to fade at some point. It is an amazing platform to invest in people. And I've had this conversation with Jason Ackerman. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I once told him, I was like, some people invest in stocks, some people invest in real estate, and they get a big ROI, but the greatest ROI in the world is relationships. And if you can establish relationships, you get an amazing return on investment from the people. Because at the end of the day, like, unfortunately for Drake, you can't take your money to the grave. So
it would have been better if you did. Well, hell, you might have just quoted a Drake song and I didn't even know it. Did you?
Yeah, he has a song called Money in the Grave.
Even better. Oh, God. I laughed so hard I pulled my headphones out. I always think about that song, Underground Kings. That's a great song. I think it's called Underground Kings.
That is a great song.
Yeah. God, it's just the...
Yeah, it's a great song.
God, like, you talking about getting hyped in the gym, dude. I'll put that on and I'm ready to run through a wall. Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously people look at that situation, the situation being Danielle coming to Naples, and you know, obviously I knew more than most because I know Matt, but it was a situation that at the outside looking in, it would be like, why Naples? You know, why? I mean, sure there's Dallin there, sure there's Matt there, but it's like still, I mean, she could have gone to HWPO, could have gone to, you know, the slew of other training camps. And so there was a lot of, and she's a person of interest for sure in our sport. And, you know, when I saw you guys working together, when I saw the, you know, firsthand the relationship that was clearly built, I was like, you know, even from the outside looking in, and this is a kudos to you, is, and the fact that you walk the talk, is it was very clear to me that there was some real relationship building that went on behind the scenes, because I'll be careful what I say here because I already got shit on for the first podcast that I did with her, but in the past when I've witnessed the relationships surrounding her, they haven't looked the way that I saw with you guys specifically, which I think was, if I could sum it up, it was, I think, one, intentional. It was two, it was poised. Like, that's a really good word. It was poised. There was no, like, everyone wants to, I think, bash her for being emotional. And then what I saw was the, I wouldn't say void of emotion. It was very poised emotion. And that's something that, like, takes real time. It doesn't just take a few months. And the fact that you did this in, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks, I don't even know. It was a very short time frame. It was really, I keep using the word impressive, but I don't really know what other word to use. So from the outside looking in, everything that you're saying, I mean, it checks, right? It's like, yeah, like, okay, gotcha. And I think that was kind of a special thing to witness too, is I was like firsthand, you're like seeing someone model, hey, not this is the only way, but this is a way that you can go about trust, about building it. And at the end of the day, and you've said it so many times, it really does come down to the intentions of the heart. It's like you can't fake that crap, man. It's like if you have ulterior motives, you're screwed, because that shit's going to come out and it's going to hit the fan, and it's going to be ugly when it does, because it's going to spew everywhere. And it was just very clear to me that there was none of that. It was just, and I think it's easy to do that with someone that, again, has the like the clout that she does, because she's really good and she's one of the best. There's no doubt. So I mean, again, kudos to you for actually walking that, and for people listening, as someone that got to see it firsthand, everything he just said, you can believe it or not believe it, but I can tell you from seeing it firsthand, 100% accurate, everything you just said.
And I think, Danielle's someone who wears her emotions on her sleeve, which is a great thing, because I think it's cool for people to see that, and actually watch people go through their emotions, because the games weekend is an emotional roller coaster. And it takes a team of people around these people to help get them through the weekend. So like, as much as maybe Matt and I said the right things to her in the moments where she was struggling, and same thing with Dallin. Like, Dallin is incredible at not showing it to the public eye, but he goes through the same emotional ups and downs that every other athlete goes through. The guy just has like a stone cold feature to him that he developed when he was a teenager that I've never seen in anybody I've ever worked with in my entire life. That is his greatest attribute as a competitor, is his ability to control his emotions and what he's thinking. But each of them had their moments where like it got emotional. And dude, it's hard because, like, again, I said, you invest in these people and you want their success more than anything. And when they don't achieve what they want to achieve, even in a single workout, like, it's as emotional for us as coaches and their team as it is for them. And I think if they see that and they understand that, like, we feel the same way and that we're going to help like get them out of that headspace and into the next event, like, that also builds athlete buy-in, because they're like, well, we feel the same way right now. And like, I know Dallin sees that. He's like, within 2 weeks of the games being over, like, he sees Matt investing in like, how are we going to get this upper body pressing, and that's all we're like thinking about, and we're trying to fix it this year, and like, it's right away. And so we all felt the same way about the event he struggled with. And so I think for them, just seeing the same mindset that they have, even though like we're not the ones doing it, is cool for them. But again, with the team, like, dude, these guys got Cooper Marsh behind them. That dude supports these guys like you can't even imagine. Their families, like, no one sees the behind the scenes, but like Dallin's family, man, like, that kid's got more support than ever. Like, Danielle has a friend group that is like got her back till she dies. Like, all the athletes that I work with have this core group of people that nobody knows about, and these people never get credit, but these people's success comes from this unit that is behind them. And they wouldn't be able to do it without them. And we as coaches wouldn't be able to do what we do with these athletes if it wasn't for those people in the background.
So obviously we talked about you never thought you'd be here, right? Coaching some of the literally the best in the world. I mean, it's insane. It's really is. It's insane. How do you obviously I think as an athlete, it's a little bit easier to stay hungry than it is as a coach, because you're not the one actually doing it, right? I mean, yeah, you help these people and you vicariously can live through them, and that's all cool and great and awesome. But how do you feel like you continue to stay hungry, like in that pursuit of getting better and leveling up and all the things that it's just like, how do you avoid complacency? Because I think and I'm speaking for myself, sometimes it can be easy for me to fall into this trap of like, well, these people trust me. I've put in the time to build the trust. I've put in the time to learn the things, whatever, and they're getting better. So I'm doing my job. So check. How do you continue to stay hungry in that pursuit? Because you're not the one with the accolades at the end of the day. It's obviously the athlete.
Yeah, there's two things that I immediately thought of. One is this book Matt gave me when he first started programming for me. It's called Mastery. I would definitely check that out.
Great
and it
book.
talks a lot about how, like, life in general, or whatever you're pursuing, it's like up, and then there's a plateau, and then there's a little up, and then maybe there's a little down, and then there's a little plateau, and then it's up again. And everything kind of comes in those cycles. So I think in terms of some things, like, we have to be like confident that a plateau is okay and that we like work through it, whether that's as a coach or an athlete, and we kind of go through that together, and we just know that eventually there's going to be a gain on the back end, and you have to trust that process. But it's really hard when you're kind of like here for a very long time. People in the CrossFit space, the first thing I think of is people who are not super strong athletes but are super aerobic. I've seen from my experience, it takes a minimum of 3 years to see a full-on strength program actually express itself. That's a long time.
3 years.
If you have an aerobic athlete that wants to become CrossFit strong, I think of like James. Like James was finally at that point this year where he was like almost just strong enough. He was that close. And that has been a 3-4 year process, and it finally expressed itself this year. Right. And then I think another year of doing that, and this year, especially with him getting healthy, when that strength can really express itself, like people should be really scared because that's the most aerobic athlete on the field. Right? I know a ton of athletes like that, but like that's a long time to feel like, oh my gosh, my squat is not going up. And then every once in a while you get like thrown a little bone and you're like, oh, maybe it is going up. And then all of a sudden, like 4 weeks later, you retest a back squat or something and it's like 10 pounds down. And you're like, well, what the heck is happening? It takes a really long time for that stuff to express itself. So that was one thing I thought of, is just like being okay with like where you're at and understanding that like plateaus are normal, and that sometimes like periods of a little bit of complacency lead you to a place where you're going to get like that motivation or that jump that you're looking for. The second thing I thought of was for me, being at the games this year and being behind the scenes and just kind of taking some time when I had it to watch what other coaches were doing, and trying to like pick up and learn some stuff from them while I was back there was something I wanted to do. And I just realized like how much of an investment it is from these coaches to all their athletes, and like everybody has different knowledge bases. But one person that was really cool, he was willing to talk to me. I haven't reached out to him yet. I just wanted to let him like chill a little bit after the game. Was actually Justin Medeiros and Ellie Turner's strength coach, Jesse. He talked to me for like 45 minutes about how I could help like Dallin with like the upper body pressing stuff, how we could help with some of the pulling. And I was like sharing some of the weaknesses that we've seen and that we saw get exposed over the weekend. And he went into like extreme detail. I was taking notes on my phone. And for someone to just be willing to do that, and they don't even know who the heck I am. Yeah, he doesn't even know who I am. And I just we were standing next to each other, and I just started trying to pick his brain. And that's when I realized, I was like, there's so much stuff I don't know. And there's a lot of people who have specialties and know stuff. So for me not to be like reaching out to these people or learning from these people is a big mistake. And that's kind of like my motivator, is to know that to remind myself that I don't know everything or the best way for everything. And I can learn from other people, like how to get someone's pressing better. So as a coach, that was really helpful for me to see, is like, wow, these guys have figured something out that I don't know, and I want to learn from them. Right. And there was a bunch of other people like where I saw the same thing. Like I was kind of watching how Frazier was working with Mal, and I was trying to pay attention to how like every coach there, how the training think tank guys work with Alexis, right? Like the people that I kind of knew around, I just tried to watch a little bit when I had the time and see how they work with their athletes, and see if it was something that I could adopt into my own coaching style.
I hear you talk about this, and the one book that like comes to mind is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And it's a very simple book. I mean, just by the title, you can probably figure out what it's about. But the humility that it takes, in my opinion, because it's like it's this dichotomy. So there was this study that looked at like some of the most successful people in the world. I was telling my wife about this last night. Some of the most successful people in the world, and one of the traits was that they oftentimes are narcissists, that they believe that they're owed something above and beyond what everyone else is, which makes them continue to like achieve.
But I think you can have that. Hear me out. I think you can have that on one hand. And on the other hand, have incredible humility. Like, it's not all humility and it's not all ego. Like, they can coexist in this dichotomy of a relationship, because sometimes you need that bravado, and there's other times you need that humility or that meekness, if you will. And neither are bad. Neither are absolutely good. There are times and places that each can be utilized to achieve a different result or outcome. And I think, I said this earlier in the podcast, is coaches, whatever, you take what serves you and leave the rest. It's a huge piece of advice. It's like you looking at these people, these other coaches, right? It's like, I'm going to take what serves me and I'm going to leave the rest. And it's from being around you for the short time that I was able to at the games, there is a clear level of, in my opinion, from what I observed, emotional intelligence that you have that's above and beyond what I think is out there in most coaches, number one. And then number two, the clear intentionality that you go about everything that you do and that you say. And back to my statement earlier, I think all coaches, including myself, can learn how to refine what they say and how they say it. And I really, even in this podcast, I saw that with you, right? Like, I saw that ability, and I think that's, I know, because I've gotten myself into hot water, I know that is a skill that has been refined for decades. Like, it's because there ain't no other way that's that refined, but like you've worked on it. And so I don't say that to blow smoke up your skirt or whatever. I say that because I saw it, and man, I want to give appreciation and kudos where it's due, because it was cool to see. It was cool to watch. I was like, man, I can learn something here. Anyways,
Thanks,
all
man.
that to say, what you're doing
Yeah.
is evident, self-evident.
Yeah, I definitely, I'll throw a verse at you. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. You familiar with that?
I am, yeah. It's freaking money,
Little verse
too.
from James 1 for you. Very important for me as a coach. For sure. And then number two, there was an impactful moment this year for me that kind of like was eye-opening of like, to me, kind of like looking at what other coaches are doing and listening to that. And I kind of want to give them a shout out for this, but I just recently started coaching Olivia Sulek. And before semis, her and her coach came down with her mom to Naples to train with us for about, I think it was like a week or 10 days. Just to like pick Matt and I's brain and to help her out. And he said something to me before. He was like, hey man, there's just some things that she's doing where like, I don't really know what the next step is for her. And that's kind of why I brought her here. And I wanted to have you guys help her with that. And like, I'm willing to take a step back in order for her to be able to make that next step, because I don't think I can help her in this place anymore. Wow. And that was like, that level of humility and care for a person, where he knows like that could potentially happen, what happened with like her switching over to Brute, and the willingness to do that for what's best for her, and understanding that like there was certain stuff that he felt that we could help her with better, which is really cool. But I should have the same mindset, is that there's other people out there that know certain stuff better than I do. And if they can help my athletes, it would be silly of me to think that I can figure it out on my own. And so he really impacted me on that, because I was like, that's the way I want to be as a coach, is I want to make sure that if an athlete feels like I'm not getting them to where they want to be, I want them to feel 100% confident that I'll support them in them switching to a different coach if they want to, or helping them to find the people or the knowledge that will help us to increase in that area of weakness. So shout out to him because he's awesome. His name's Nick Simpson, by the way, if people don't know him.
Yeah.
Awesome guy.
Well, dude, I know you're on vacation, so I want to keep this short and sweet. I don't want to take any more of your time. I appreciate your time, number one. But number two, I want to be respectful of it. But before we get off, is there anything that maybe we didn't bring up or that you would like to add before we get off here?
No, I think we touched on some really cool stuff. I think the biggest thing in general is just for coaches, since that's kind of been the focus of our conversation, is just know why you're doing what you're doing and make sure it's not for just like making money and supporting yourself. Like that's always the reason of a career. Like you got to pay the bills at home, but at the end of the day, like remember that the people that you invest in are worth way more than the money you receive to pay your bills. And if you really coach all your people with that type of mindset, the day-to-day process and the really long days of coaching actually carry a lot of meaning and substance, because you get an opportunity to get to know people and be a part of their life forever, even when they stop CrossFit. And that should really be the end goal of everybody, is not just to make better CrossFitters, but to help people reach their greatest maturity and become the best version of themselves. And hopefully they can carry what they learned in CrossFit into something else, because eventually everyone's going to transition out of CrossFit, and they got to be able to take what they learned in the sport and in their training process into actual life. And if as a coach I can help make that transfer, that's exactly what I want to do.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate you a whole lot. This was awesome. I learned some stuff. My favorite podcast, by the way, are the podcasts, selfishly, where I learn something. And I think, no, seriously. I mean, like, I don't like, I can't remember who I told this to. It might have been James Fitzgerald when he came on. I was like, dude, I don't give a shit if people get zero out of this podcast. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'm going to ask the questions I want to ask, because I'm genuinely, I genuinely want to be curious. Like, and I want to practice. This is a weird thought. I want to practice being curious. Like, I want to practice asking questions, listening genuinely to their response, trying to remove my own ego, try to remove my own bias, and really try to learn something, like above and beyond what I think or what I expect or even what I know. And I think that if you're out there and you want to be more curious as a coach, as a human, as a whatever, start by asking better questions. Because sometimes you're down the right path. You're just asking the wrong questions. And if you don't know how to ask better questions, get around people that are going to ask those questions of you and help you level up. Because I can tell you this, is the people you surround yourself with are in fact who you're going to be like, and who are going to create your ceiling for your for your potential, your altitude. So anywho, but all that to say, thank you again. I appreciate it. Keep your browser open real quick.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to stop
Yeah,
this.
no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, dude. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to Brute Strength Podcast. As always, you can head over to brutestrengthtraining.com to connect with us and access the links and resources mentioned in this podcast. That's brutestrengthtraining.com for exclusive content and giveaways just for you, our podcast listeners. Consider subscribing so you never miss out. That's all for this episode. See you next time.